Welcome, Wargamers. Join your hosts, Bonko and Monty, two Canadian wargaming enthusiasts, as we explore all aspects of tabletop wargaming. We roll dice, talk tactics, share hobby hacks, and explore new tabletop systems, all on the Trident Wargaming Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to Trident Wargaming. We have a special episode set up for you guys today. I am joined with the Arch Magos, Alex.
Beep boop.
Beep boop is right. Today is going to be all about that sweet Liber Mechanicum Deep Dive. And we've brought on the emissary of the Mechanicum himself just to break it all down for us. I personally don't play Mechanicum. But Alex does, and a few other guys in the community do here locally. But I've always been interested with the army, and I love, seeing what they can do and the whole lore background behind them. So, I guess before we jump in, do some hobby progress. What have you been cooking up lately, Alex? I know you've been busy.
Well, I think I got the last of my Emperor's Children built and primed here. I got my Sunkillers done and my Phoenix Terminators. I've been waiting for months to come back in stock, and I was able to snag both. And got the heavy weapon las cannon set from GW put together with cacophony bodies and custom backpacks for the Sunkillers. So that kind of marks the end. Oh, and Lucius came in, and the new Praetor came in. It kind of marks the end of all of my, 3,500 points. That I picked up here to start a new Legion with, and that doesn't mean I haven't started with my Mechanicum. So I got a whole bunch of new Secutors in, and some Myrmidon Destructors put together, and I put together Krakenos, the artillery tank, because I think it's a sleeper unit in the new Mechanicum here, which we're going to talk about. Busy week.
Yeah, no doubt. I've been watching a lot of pictures. He's been just churning out crazy amount of models, just putting a lot of us to shame. So it's been nice to check it all out.
Like I say, if I'm not handsome, at least I'm prolific. So, what about you?
It has been, it's been busy on my end. Doing a lot of building on my Imperial fists. I was a little bit of just a converting building hoe there on the weekend. A lot of stuff on the go, trying to get my 3K Imperial Fist army built and painted by mid-October here for an event Boys of the Golden Throne are holding. I officially started painting my Imperial Fists yesterday. So
just so we're clear, this is 3,000 points by the 14th of October.
Yeah.
It's 26th of September.
Yeah.
Fuck, just shine bright.
I'm trying, bright, little star. I'm trying. If everything goes the way I want it to, I'm basically averaging 2 hobby nights, and I'll be getting a squad of 10 Marines done. So it's not bad. A lot of Marines to pump through, though. I've got essentially 40 more to crank out after this. So we'll see. That'll be really the big time sink for me. I think buildings and everything, tanks or vehicles will go a lot faster, but we'll have to see how this log goes.
Does your 3K have a lot of tanks? I thought it was mostly infantry, wasn't it?
It's mostly infantry. Well, I've got 2 Sicaran.
Oh, yeah. Arcus or
Punishers?
Yeah, Punishers. Oh, Jesus! Yeah. Not happy. We need more strength 6 rending shots.
Well, yeah, as many as I can get.
Just lead into that theme.
Well, that's the whole theme. Essentially.
Right on.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that Imperial Fist list later. I guess we can turn it over to Master Mars here. Get us started.
I guess I'd like to first of all thank the unnamed British individual who was able to secure me a copy of the Liber Mechanicum a few weeks ahead of everyone else because it was lost in transit in the warp somewhere. between China and North America, and so I was able to get the book about 4 or 5 weeks ago now. I spent a lot of time kind of going through everything, figuring out kind of what the discussion was going to be around what the meta looked like and kind of what were the hot units kind of in advance, which was nice. That being said, I've only played one game with Mechanicum, 1,500 point game with Mechanicum here to date, so a lot of this is just kind of overview from some of the discussions we've had in the community, some of the local guys talking back and forth, and kind of our own expectations on what this book is going to present here for the community as a whole. So I guess what I did is I broke this up, try and be as linear as possible, so you guys weren't listening all night here for a 2 or 3 hour deep dive. And I think we're going to break this up into maybe 2 casts. The first one tackling kind of a deep dive on the kind of core mechanics of the book and how the book kind of plays on the field, and then maybe get into knights and titans kind of later for bigger battles and kind of how the knights are going to play. I will touch a little bit on knights here at the end in some of kind of the comments, but we won't get too far into the allied detachments and the knights here for at least this cast. We'll save that for the round 2.
Oh, very nice.
So for any of you who played first edition, really we originally had the Legio Cybernetica and the Tegmata Omnissiah. That's gone completely for the most part. The core concepts are still there, but it's basically it's gone. And we'll talk about how this kind of feeds into the Archmagos abilities and how you kind of define your list through character selection. It is very much like Hero Hammer has turned into, say, like AOS, how AOS plays and how 40k plays, where you kind of customize and build your force around your characters, and it's very thematic like that. Like if your Magos really wants to specialize with automata and lean into that idea of that we're leading cybernetic monsters storming across the battlefield, then you can do that, but you kind of have to build your army that way, which is kind of an interesting choice made at selection and prior deployment. So we'll go into that. You can still kind of build your Legio, or it's kind of like I guess build a thrall as a way the community talks about it. Is you've got a kind of a way now to build your army the way you want to build it, and with allied detachments you can kind of expand into other dimensions, but you do kind of have to build a relatively not one-dimensional army, but at least an army that focuses on kind of one aspect of the Mechanicum as a whole. So you also have options in this book for the traditional Tegmata Omnissiah, which is like the forces of the Mechanicum, the ground forces of the Mechanicum. The book also breaks out into, of course, the Knights Liber, which is like specifically focusing on the Knight houses and the Knight rules. And then, of course, you have the Titan Legions, which again we'll leave those 2 here for the second episode, but just to say that you can build specific factions around both Knights and Titans on top of the traditional Tegmata Omnissiah. So the other thing we're not going to really get into as well is kind of the drama around the book to date. Anyone who's kind of following the community, there's been lots of discussion around how the reductor rule doesn't technically work in close combat, and how some of the rules interaction just don't function. Hopefully, like we've seen some movement here just recently this week. Scoria got his degree officially from the University of Mechanicum. He becomes an Archmagos again for the first time, which is nice. There is some movement towards an FAQ here from GW to fix some of these issues. So I don't want to dig too much into this because that'll kind of invalidate the episode really quickly if we make a decision or an assumption on what the rules look like, and then it changes in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Other thing I think we're not going to talk about is like obviously the fan-made rules right now around the Liber Mechanicum. Is the community is relatively split. There's a strong push towards fixing some of the issues here in both the Liber Astartes, Hereticus, and Mechanicum. But again, it kind of dates the content here if we lean in on exactly how to fix this book right now, given how in flux the community is.
Yeah. No, very fair, very fair.
So I guess we can really quickly go through some of the high level stuff, like warlord traits. The Mechanicum still have access to the traditional warlord traits in the core book, so Bloody Handed, Stoic Defender, and Ever Vigilant. The 3 new warlord traits are Soul of Cold Iron, which is any unit within 6 inch may still move while pinned and declare charges, but can only make snapfire shots, and gains +1 reaction in the movement phase. Kind of a decent.
I like that one.
Yeah, it seems to be decent. Like I think like with how we'll talk about some of the low leadership characteristics and how a lot of the units had lost fearless. So like being able to still move and declare a charge while pinned, for thralls, is I think is the only thing saving grace right now for them.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I do like that for sure.
Logic of Victory, which is going to be, I think, the go-to for most, is Warlord. If the Warlord does not make a shooting attack specific with a shooting weapon and is not locked in combat, it gains +1 reaction in each phase of the game for the game turn. So 1 in movement, 1 in shooting, 1 in assault for each phase, which is pretty big. And also, if they don't shoot, they provide +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill, for their unit, and adds +3 initiative, +3 movement when used as part of a reaction. So you give up a shooting attack, but you gain, your unit gains +1 skill, +1 ballistic skill, and +3 initiative movement when reacting, which is pretty substantial. The other thing too, just a note here, is again some of the clarification from the recent FAQ is like a shooting attack is not a battlesmith roll or a cyberthurgy roll. So it still allows you to use your cyberthurgy powers, still allows you to repair automata. You just can't shoot a physical weapon, so you can't use that photon thruster, for example. And the last one is more the melee focused one, is the Science of Slaughter. On the second round of combat and then on kind of further, as long as you stay in combat with that same combat, the warlord gains +1 weapon skill, +1 strength to a max of 10 until the combat ends, and then it resets. And you also gain +1 reaction in the assault phase. So you kind of just gain weapon skill and strength each turn that you're stuck in combat. So again, most Mechanicus special characters are going to have a 3-up invulnerable save. Some of them may have a feel no pain on top of that. And they're all going to be at least toughness 5, unless you're scoring, in which case you're toughness 6. So like, these things may actually be stuck in combat. You might not be able to insta kill them. Unless you rolled that 6, I guess, the Paragon Blade. But they are going to be tough to shuffle out of combat. So having constantly +1 weapon skill, +1 strength each turn makes them even more difficult. This works really well on like a Myrmidon's Lord, or even a Magos. So the advanced reaction for the entirety of Liber Mechanicum is a great advanced reaction. So scornful fire in the enemy shooting phase. If an enemy shoots at your special character, any one of your special characters, all friendly Mechanicum units within 12 inch of that unit plus the unit itself can return fire.
Oh my!
So you're still subject to the return fire interaction. So like if you can't see the target, you can't just fire stuff at them. You can't fire ordnance at them. You can't see them. Stuck. That kind of those general rules around return fire. But that's pretty strong, especially given like how you build your Mechanicus army now. There's going to be lots of secretary Axiarches or normal Magoses and an Archmagos or more in each list. So it'd be hard to build a Mechanicum force with at least 2 or 3 HQ units that are going to be kind of in other units. So there's 3 opportunities that if you shoot any of those units, everyone's going to shoot you back.
So
which
is it a special abusive character, or is it strictly just like an independent
character?
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Again, your Magoses, your Archmagos, or your Secretary Axiarches, which are your HQ units. So, and again, those are going to be embedded with units of Castellax or Thalix or Myrmidons. So, I can just imagine like getting shot back by like
4 squads.
Yeah, some of the limiting factor here is that again we can deep dive a little bit further. Is that the Automata special rule prevents Automata from reacting, but the way around this is you can actually cause your Automata to be able to react in the following phase. So, if you choose that option, you use your Cyberthurgy, you can actually gain reactions to be able to have this involved in some way. So, pretty spicy advanced reaction from the Mechanicum.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Very fitting, though. I like the just mass firepower.
Yeah. And there's definitely across the board, whether it's Liber Astartes or Liber Hereticus, there's been some nerfing, I guess, of the firepower availability for most units, like just plasma getting the natural AP2 being removed, some of the artillery going from AP3 to AP4, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There's still some really solid shooting in this list. One of the obviously some of the big stuff is a lot of the ranges were nerfed. So like your dark fire cannons, you need to be within 24, 36 inches now for photon thrusters and cannons. So like it changes the dynamic a little bit, but there's still lots of AP2, AP3 in Mechanicum. There's still definitely a deadly shooting force. So I'm going to flip over here, and we kind of touched a little bit on what are and how you build your force with like these orders of the high Techno-Arcana. Yeah. So when you select an Archmagos, and again, you can only have one. The special rule now is called Pride of Place, where you can only select one Archmagos on a band or an Archmagos to be able to kind of build your army around. That Archmagos can then select orders of the high Techno-Arcana. So these are Arachmandrite, Cybernetica, Lacrimarta, Macrotech, Malagra, Myrmedox, and Reductor. And we'll touch on each one of these a little bit, but each one of these kind of define how you're going to build your force effectively. And then after that, we'll go into each one of these also has access to the Cyberthurgic Arcana, which is kind of like additional individual buffs that Magos, an Archmagos, and even Tech Adept can upgrade to be able to receive and kind of give to the unit around them. So we'll start out with I think it's Arachmandrite. Yeah, this is the main one. So this is the first of all, the special rule is that this must be your warlord. Obviously, you gain access to Master Thurgica, which gives you an additional Cyber Arcana, which again we'll cover in a second, and Master Technomancer, which gives a Battlesmith. Whenever you activate Battlesmith on a unit, they gain the same ballistic skill as the Magos, and vehicle gains Power of the Machine Spirit if it doesn't already have it. So it kind of gives your Mechanicum vehicles access to Power of the Machine Spirit, and again, anything that you Battlesmith to, that unit gains BS. So typically you're gaining BS 5 if it doesn't already have it. For example, using this on a unit of Castellax bumps them up to BS 5. That's awesome. Pretty sexy. So Cybernetica is the next one. Cybernetica makes Castellix line, which is we talk about this in the strategy section here at the end, but it's hard to ignore. This one is probably one of the best ones. So this makes your Castellix scoring. You gain an ability called Network Sensorium Protocols, which if you have a unit shooting at a specific target within range of 2 or more Cortex controllers, it provides a -2 to the cover save. So again, like I said earlier, you're going to have probably 2 or 3 Magoses and Archmagos in your list. Each one of those has a Cortex controller. So if you're within 12 inch of 2 or more of these, you're getting -2 to anything you shoot at for cover save with the units. And then Preservation Protocols. So this gains the Patras Cybernetica rule, which means that you can choose not to allocate wounds to the Magos even with sniper and precision shots, which is huge right now, I think, in the meta, where you're seeing like a more proliferation of at least Nemesis bolters and snipers in each list to pop off apothecaries and all this. This overrides that rule, stops you from targeting the Magos completely if you want, and you can allocate wounds to the the Castellax he's going to be hanging out with, for example.
That's pretty sweet. I have to admit, that is a very nice little additional buff there, especially right now, like you mentioned, with the way that things are going in the meta. A lot of people are taking snipers, and it's not that the snipers aren't, like, they're not a bad choice. It's what really amplifies everything right now is that dirty old Nemesis bolter. It's just super good for what it does.
Yeah, if you haven't run into at least one squad of Nemesis Bolter Recon Marines yet, like, you're not even living at this point. No. It's a rude awakening when you start, like when you lose your Praetor in the second round as he tries to hoof it across the board and gets gassed by a squad of Marines from 70 inches away. Yeah,
it's just it's the ultimate scalpel for Legion lists. So that's a nice way to counter that, which I kind of like. I like quite a bit.
So the third one is Lacrimarta. And whenever you see Lacra Marta or Lacra Marza, or like however they, there's 3 or 4 different kind of similar uses of this word. Typically, it means like your more zombie-esque Mechanicum force. So this special Techno-Arcana gives you access to a thing called a Sanguine Hook, which you must select the Ephemera Lacrimarta Cyberthurgy Arcana, which again we'll go over here in a second. It gives you access to Incorruptible Flesh, which HQ or an infantry unit that you join is only affected by rending, poison, or fleshbane attacks on a roll of 6+. And then Opus Viscera, which a model with Battlesmith is able to restore a lost wound to an actual infantry character. And actually cast a Cyberthurgy Arcana, which allows the unit to immediately move 2 times their initiative characteristic in at any phase. So this is important because like you can cast this in the shooting phase effectively, and give your infantry like a 2 times initiative. Now, for the most part, like, don't get me wrong, Mechanic have shit initiative,
like 2 or 3.
Yeah. So, but again, it's 2 times. So like even for your I guess your Seculars, for example, would be your Niche 3. It gives them a 6-inch movement in their shooting phase potentially to bump them forward. Which again, if you're more melee focused, it's kind of a nice buff. The other thing is too, maybe Domitars, in Niche 2 gives them a 4-inch kind of plug, so they're moving 8 inches, an extra 4. Gives them like a natural 12-inch movement, and you just have to be within range of the aura. So it's 12-inch or 16-inch range.
That's pretty nice.
A nice little buff. So 4th one here is the Macro Tech. So this is the Engine Seer loadout. So Tech Priest Exilia may be taken as troops choices, but must select the Engine Seer Techno-Arcana. It gives you access to Moderati Munitora, which is before objectives are set up. It allows you to move 3 pieces of terrain anywhere on the battlefield, no closer than 2 inches to anything else on the terrain, like no other within 2 inches to another piece of terrain or an objective or something like that. And then Reactor Edificii, which is models with Battlesmith may repair buildings in addition to dreadnoughts and vehicles. So any hits allocated to a model repaired by this will only be affected by Exoshock, Breaching, and rending rolls of 6.
Ooh. So
it kind of like, again, if you want to go more on like the lean into that I fix stuff Mechanicum list, this works for you. Next one here is Malagra, which is more of like their role here is to hunt down techno heretics and dark Mechanicum. So you get access to Ictus Insidiae, which is any character equipped with a Machinator or Servo Arm may be upgraded to a Prehensile Data Spike for 10 points. And just quickly, a Prehensile Data Spike is Reach 2, Breaching 4 up, and Murder Strike 6 up. So basically allows you to hit it +2 initiative, and you're getting a chance for that instant death on a 6. And they get it for 10 points. It gives you access to the Interfector Auxilia, which is Tech Priest Auxilia, maybe choosing to be upgraded to the Interfector Techno-Arcana, which just means that it actually gives them access to the Prehensile Data Spikes and Scout. So you basically get like, say, 2 like mini Magoses with Prehensile Data Spikes and Scout. So kind of like get up in advance and maybe try and, I don't know, ambush a HQ character quick or something. The ironic thing is they're weapon skill 3, toughness 4. They're kind of shit in melee. This is just like you run it up and try and bee-sting something really quickly. Yeah. What's interesting here about this is they get a kind of an interesting way to include more Architor Magisteriums. So this special is called Sacred Mission. So a single Architor Magisterium, which is a new elite choice that's in the book, we'll cover here in a bit, may be taken as an HQ choice. It loses its Hunter-Killer special role and gains Scout and Court of the Executioners. And Court of the Executioners allows you to take 2 more of these Architor Magisteriums for 110 points. And the HQ with this also gains Preferred Enemy Characters, Precision Strikes 5 up, and Monster Hunters rules, and is upgraded with Weapon Skill 5 and +1 attack. So, in short, this basically makes your single Architor Magisterium HQ unit into like a champion, effectively. Yeah. Gives you gives you access to like a weapon skill 5, 4 attacks, precision strike 5 up, preferred enemy, and monster hunter to go after those like monstrous Techno-Heresy models on the board that you're destined to do combat with. So it's an interesting take. Preferred enemy characters with precision strikes 5 up, weapon skill 5, and +1 attack actually makes them a pretty decent just straight across marine killer. Again, you can give these guys power weapons, power axes, kind of the whole loadout, and so it does actually make them pretty decent in close combat. And again, you can, I believe, give them the Prehensile data spike as well. I gotta double check that though. But yeah, a decent like in a codex or a Liber that's filled with kind of mediocre melee units. These actually aren't that bad. So the next one is, and my personal favorite, Myrmidax.
I was just about to ask.
this is like, other than like Cybernetica, because I think you have to take it because it gives you a line for your Castellax. The Myrmidax is just such a great, flavorful loadout to build an army around. So it gives you access to the Avatar of Destruction rule, which you take a single Thanatar Calyx, which is the Thanatar with the heavy las cannon on its shoulder, and may be taken as a non-compulsory HQ, and cannot take the Paragon special rule. But what this does is it makes Myrmidon Secutors and Destructors line troops.
Oh.
So, and what this gives access to is the Myrmidon Host, it gives Myrmidon Secutors line and gives Myrmidon Destructors elites. It takes them elites. It takes Myrmidon Destructors out of heavy and turns them into elites, and it takes Myrmidon Secutors out of elites and turns them into troops, effectively.
Wow.
So you can take even more. That's awesome. And then the HQ gains hatred, everything, bulky 3, and a wound characteristic of 5. Where this gets a little weird is the language around this. This is like one of the discussion topics here. It needs to be fixed. Is it says the model. Again, everyone says it refers to the HQ and gains hatred, everything, bulky 3, and wounds characters to 5. But an Archmagos on a band has a wound character 5 base. So it's kind of like, does it gain +2? Because he goes from, if he's not on a band, he's 3 wounds, and he goes to 5 wounds. So if he's on a banment, should he go to 7? But right now it's just saying he gets 5 wounds, and that's kind of rules as written. But it's he's basically, you can take an Archmagos, and again, you can equip Archmagoses with Paragon blades, chain fists, the whole 9 yards, gaining hatred, everything. And a flat wounds character to 5 is again, this thing is on a 3++ save, 2 up armor save, 3+ invulnerable save base. That's pretty beefy.
Yeah, no, that's rivaling some like Imperial Fist and Salamander Iron Hand builds that you can do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So the last one is the Order of Reductor. So this is typically the artillery, I'm going to smash buildings and demolish everything in our path type of high arcana. So the HQ gains the Demolisher rule, which rather than gaining a Battlesmith, this can be used offensively. So it can cause like a building or a vehicle to lose hull points. It can inflict an automatic wound with no saves of any kind against dreadnoughts. It can inflict an automatic weapon destroyed on a building or vehicle, but the vehicle doesn't lose a hull point, and inflict an automatic immobilize result on a vehicle, but again, doesn't lose a hull point. The issue here is that technically Battlesmith can't be used in close combat. So like there's an assumption that for some reason there's a missed rule here where, basically in lieu of using your Battlesmith rule, you can just do this in the assault phase, but there's no clear guidelines on how that happens and how that interaction is supposed to work. Because again, you have to be in base contact and stuff like that for Battlesmith, and it's not really clear how that interaction works, but those are the rules. You also gain Harbinger of Destruction or Devastation, nominate up to 3 pieces of terrain, and they lose cover saves and count as difficult terrain and dangerous terrain. And or you can gain fortifications, gain +1 on the building damage table. So if you're playing fortifications, you get +1 damage when you hit them.
Up to 3 pieces. That's crazy.
Yeah, so like just three, and again, it doesn't have to. If they're ruins, they lose all the saves. If it's open terrain, it loses all the save, and they become difficult and dangerous terrain.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, there's what is it? The Tyrant of the Dodecathon. I can only do it to one actual area terrain piece. You got
or if you're like Dark Angels.
Yeah.
Dark Angels can do the whole board, and so can Death Guard, right?
Yeah.
Every single piece of terrain on the whole board gets difficult terrain or dangerous terrain.
Nice.
So, Kicker is the model. The HQ gains access to the Artificia Reductor Arcana, which again we'll talk about here in a second. So yeah, those are the kind of the orders of the high Techno-Arcana. Again, just to kind of reiterate, Arachmandrite kind of gives you access to an additional Arcana. It makes you really solid at Battlesmith and upgrading units, and kind of just is a good all-round take. Cybernetica, it makes your Castellix lines or Castellic line. Lacrimarta gives the ability to heal infantry. Macrotech makes you into like a super engine seer. Malagra gives you access to a special HQ unit that can hunt monstrous creatures. Myrmidax gives you access to that Myrmidon host, which is like a full Myrmidon army. And then Reductor allows you to, eventually will allow you to inflict automatic wounds on things once we figure it out. And just is more of a table manipulation HQ trait about removing cover saves. And so what you do is you pick one of these, and that's all you get access to. So again, you can only choose one Archmagos, and only an Archmagos has access to the orders of the High Techno-Arcana. So again, there's a way around this. You can take an allied detachment, you get another Archmagos, and then that Archmagos can take another order, and that's kind of how you're able to choose kind of 2 of these potentially in bigger games. But usually, again, sub 3,000 points or sub even 2,000 points, you're going to pick one of these and you're going to build around that. So if you're choosing Myrmidax, you're probably going to have more Myrmidons, especially Secutors in your troop slots. Yeah. Less Thalix. If you're going with Cybernetica, obviously you're going to have more Automata in your force. More Cortex controllers, and you probably have a few more Magoses to support that. And again, you're kind of going to build to support this, and build your kind of core force around it.
That's wicked.
So the next kind of big thing here, or change, I guess, other than that, is the Cyberthurgy kind of upgrades and the Arcana and the weapons that you get with it. So Cyberthurgy acts very similar to Psychic Powers or leadership tests. The user can take a test against their unmodified leadership, and if they pass, the ability goes off. And if they fail, they have to take a Cyberthurgic feedback test, or they just take Cyberthurgic feedback. So the unit, or the model specifically, but if it's with a unit, the unit automatically becomes pinned, takes 1 wound, but can take invulnerable saves against it. Or if it's an automata or vehicle that's the HQ unit, takes D3 wounds or hull points. So again, right now there's not a whole lot of automata that can also be HQ. So this is a little bit maybe forecasting of what might look like down the road. But right now, for the most part, the issue is you get pinned right away, which sucks. So if you fail your leadership test on your Cyberthurgic test, you automatically become pinned. No ways around it. So who cares if you take a win? Whatever, is what it is. But the automatic pinning really sucks. So there is a bit of a risk that you have to take in order to make these go off. So same thing applies because, again, we'll go over it here, where you get access to a Cyberthurgic Arcana. You also get access to a Cyberthurgic weapon with each Arcana that is specific to that Arcana. And you actually have to use or take a Cyberthurgic test to be able to use that weapon. So theoretically, in a round, you could, in your movement phase, have to use a Cyberthurgic Arcana. For example, like the Arachmandrite Cyberthurgic Arcana, which allows you to repair a unit at range. And then in the shooting phase, potentially you might be in a situation where you use your Cyberthurgic Arcana again. So there's some wording here around you can't use a shooting attack and use Arcana. And what the argument is, well, I can use 2 shooting weapons per turn, so I use my Arcana on one and I use my shooting weapon on the other. The other argument here is that you could use a Battlesmith, so you could do your repair because it's in lieu of shooting, and still use your Arcana to do something else, for example. So right now, for me personally, the general rule is that I wouldn't probably use the Arcana shooting weapon and use the Arcana in the same turn, but I would use, say, a Battlesmith roll and use an Arcana in the same turn to give an idea. So, but either way, the point I'm trying to get to is that you will end up using, if you really want to use like either the weapons or the Arcana, you'll end up in a situation where you have to use test on this either every turn or every second turn to be able to have these things go off. So we'll just go through them, I guess, similar to the orders of the High Techno-Arcana. It starts with Cyberthurgy Arcana. With the first one was the Artificia Machina. So instead of shooting, you may use the Battlesmith on a unit within 12 inches. And if the test is passed, you actually get to apply the Battlesmith healing twice. So if you're healing an automata, you can use this, roll your leadership. If you pass, you apply the rules of the Battlesmith roll twice to the unit that you're attempting to heal, which is sexy. Yep. Especially when you're talking like Thanatars having a natural ability. The Thanatar Cavus has an ability to take D3 wounds and fire twice in a turn. You could just plant a Magos next to this thing with this and just like heal them every turn twice if you wanted to. The weapon that they get access to is the Animatus Exindor, which is a 12-inch Strength 1 AP 1 Assault D6 Haywire pistol. So Assault D6 Haywire shots at 12-inch range, awesome. Which is like your come at me, Contemptor. Yeah, I dare you. The kicker is it is Detatchment, and you'll see that with most of these Arcana races. These are Detatchment, so they have to be used on like a vehicle or an automata or some kind of dreadnought body, effectively, to be able to be used. So you can't just use this on infantry. So the next one here is the Artificia Cybernetica. So you roll an additional dice and discard the lowest when charging. Unit ignores the first wound allocated in each shooting attack that targets the unit at the start of the player's next turn. The unit gains +1 ballistic skill and or gains the ability to make reactions. So what this is at the beginning, when you roll this, you get to choose between these 4. So you get to roll an additional dice and discard the lowest when charging. So it's your assault one. You can choose to ignore the first wound allocated in each shooting phase. You can choose to give the unit +1 ballistic skill, or you can choose to have the unit take reactions. So this is one of 2 abilities in the whole codex, the whole Liber, that allows you to give automata the ability to make reactions. So this will be a pretty popular choice, I think.
And then this is what you were talking about with comboing up with that Cybernetica High Techno-Arcana.
Yeah, so again, like the combo being you put your Arch Magos with the Warlord trait where he gives the unit +1 weapon skill, +1 ballistic skill in a big block of Castellan, and just walk them up the board with Darkfire cannons, and they're naturally BS5 weapon skill 4 at that point. And then if you really want to do it, you can cast this and give them the ability to take reaction or to make reactions each turn. So it's it's pretty gross. The weapon you get access to is the Mordio Cogita or Cogita. Mordio Cogita, which is range 12, strength 10, AP 1, assault 1, Detatchment, instant death. So this gives you again a strength 10 AP 1 pistol shot with instant death against anything with the automata special rule, dreadnought or vehicle. And then third one here is the Ephemera Incursus, which is in the shooting phase. You pick an enemy vehicle or automata within 12, and that unit you can actually choose to make snapshots with against a friendly unit to them. So like I can pick your unit with a vehicle or automata rule within 12 inches of me, and it can make snapshots. Now I can roll on the Cyberthurgy table, and if I pass, I can fire at full ballistic skill. So if you have a dreadnought within 12 or a vehicle within 12, like your Kratos, if I can get my Magos within 12 inches of Kratos, I can fire your weapons or a weapon at a unit of my choosing with your Kratos at full ballistic skill. Actually, sorry, it's at the Magos ballistic skill. So full ballistic skill. However, after that, the unit gains hatred Cyberthursts.
After being so abused.
After being abused, yeah.
Wow.
So the weapon you gain access to is the Ephemera Exocluo? Fucking Mechanicum. Everything's got to be a complicated word.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a range 24, strength 3, AP dash, assault 6, blind Vox silence. And so Vox silence is specific, I believe, to this codex so far, but it's -2 leadership.
Ooh.
So just kind of a flat -2 leadership for the rest of the round. So again, it's kind of greasy. You think you can kind of assault 6. You get 6 shots, and again, the Vox silence is if you do 1 wound. I believe is the way it works, but I'll double check here. But I'm pretty sure it's if you do 1 wound. I don't think it's on hit. They get -2 for the rest of the turn. So the next one is Ephemera Lacrimarda. So instead of shooting, pick a friendly infantry unit within 12, and again, that unit may immediately move 2x its initiative and gains Hammer of Wrath 1 and Furious Charge 1. So there's again, you can use this in your shooting phase, technically.
Yeah.
So you move. Let's say I'm gonna dunk on them here later, but you've got access to a few melee units in the codex that are not very great, but suddenly if they have like a 12-inch movement, throwing them up the board at something and giving them Hammer of Wrath and Furious Charge, hitting at strength 6 or strength 9, I guess if they have Power Fists, makes it a little bit more spicy. It's kind of like a slingshot move.
Yeah.
And then the weapon you gain access to is the Ephemera Excursus, which is a melee weapon, strength star, AP 3, Fleshbane, Radphage, Concussive 3.
Ugh.
So strength user, AP 3, Fleshbane, Radphage, Concussive 3. So Concussive 3.
That's nasty. Yeah, that'll do some damage.
Next one here is the Artificia Reductor Arcana, which is instead of shooting, you select an enemy building or fortification or transport, which is key here, within 12 inch. They must immediately make a check. You must immediately pass an emergency disembarkation, and the unit must take a pinning test. So, like, you pass your Cyberthurgic test, everyone gets out of the bus and has to take a pinning test. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of sexy. You can kind of, like, again, you have to be within 12, which is a little tough. But like, if you can get a Magos within 12 inches of your Death Star in its Spartan, you can force them to immediately disembark. And again, most of them are going to have either Fearless or some way of mitigating it. So they're probably going to pass their pinning test. But then they're out in the open, and it's on your turn. In your movement or shooting phase, you can do this.
Yeah, and that's, wow, I guess that just kind of reinforces if you're within 12 inches of Mechanicum and you're not assaulting, you're probably in trouble.
You're going to be abused in some form.
Yeah, it's not going to be good.
So the weapon, the Artificer Reductor, gains access to the Manos Ruinous, which is a Strength 10 AP 1 Armor Bane Exoshock 3+, unwieldy, cumbersome weapon. Again, this happens 3 times in the Codex. There's 3 other units that have Cumbersome, which is basically hitting on 6s. You get 1 attack. If it connects, it's Strength 10 AP 1 Armor Bane at Exoshock 3+, but he is probably not going to connect. So, womp womp. Again, another reason why the poor Reductor get dumped on by a lot of people on the forums and Facebook right now. So what this means here, you've selected your order of the high Techno-Arcana. You've got your Archmagos. You're like, I'm gonna be Cybernetica. You gain access to one of these Arcana base, and if you're a Arachmandrite, you gain access to 2 Arcana base. And then on top of that, you may take, as a part of your HQ chases, you may take Magoses, just normal Magoses, and they have access to a single Arcana as well. So when you look at these, you get access to numerous ways to buff your force. So again, if you want to do the ability to give your automata reactions, again, there's no limit on this. You can cast this I believe you can cast this with multiple units, but you can cast this one unit. You could choose to buff another unit with a different one. You can take, you could take the Lacrimarda if you have a melee focused unit to slingshot up the board with one of your Magoses, or maybe you do want to go more. Maybe you do want to go Artificia Machina, and you gain the Battlesmith repairing. So you have your Magos with Artificia Machina sitting in the back repairing your Thatatars, which are throwing plasma mortars up the board every turn, and you've got your Archmagos with Ephemera and Cursus and Lacrimarda, more melee focused. It kind of lets you to kind of pick and choose how you want your force to kind of be kitted out and the upgrades that you want to give it. It's very flavorful, I have to say.
Yeah, no doubt. It just seems to be very nice to be able to customize your force for however you actually want it to play. I can really see where you can just kind of go wild with some of the options. Yeah,
and I think reasonably like I said, in the first book we had a Legio Cybernetica, which was like Scoria, a little bit of Castellax, Thralls, and maybe a Knight. You had the Tagmod Omnissiah, which is like the guys that were taking more Thralls, but like lots of armor. And then you had the Ordo Reductor, which was basically bullshit. No one played it. Sorry to the half a dozen Ordo Reductor players out there that have just been waiting for the Mechanicum Ordinance to come through for the 10 years. And then you got the Night Houses. This allows you to really like to take, there's play styles in here that allow you to take Voltraxes and Voraxes in a way that you typically hadn't played them for. Well, everyone's going to take Voltraxes, but Voraxes specifically. To play multiple Domitars. Again, we'll get into kind of the units here a little bit, but to play multiple Domitars and they can have a role, and you can upgrade them, and you can give them Hammer Wrath, and it's just it gives you lots of different play styles, which kind of feeds the narrative, I think, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So I did want to that's the core of the of kind of the general book, and like I said, there's the two allied detachments. There's the Night House, which we'll talk about here in episode 2, yep. And there's the Titan houses. The only thing I'm going to mention is there was a lot of drama around the release here with the Secretari being kind of taken out of the main book and being put into the Titan Legion house. It's quite clear from the rules in the book that with the Titan house, you can choose to take a Titan or a Troops choice in the Secretari. So you don't have to, you can take an allied detachment of quote unquote Titans and actually just make it a Secretari force. That's an option in the book. On the plus side for most players is that Secretari, especially hoplites, have been nerfed solidly into the ground. There's no like popping up from a termite with 10 BS 5 haywire attacks popping, whatever they shot at turn 1 or turn 2. And that's coming from a guy who abused people like that for 2 years with that tactic. They just don't exist anymore. A lot of the haywire on most Secretari units has been nerfed. The revision here is one second here.
Especially as being a player who was abused by Voltrax, it was and the hoplites, I should say.
And
the hoplites especially. It was not a fun place to be. I just stopped taking vehicles for a few games because I just didn't want it to die. I was tired of paying points for nothing.
It's like, fuck your Spartan turn 1. So your haywire gets replaced with a special rule called disruption. So again, when you look at the haywire rule, it basically if it hits, it auto glances, and it forces, what's really sexy about it is it forces dreadnoughts and automata to immediately take an invulnerable save. Yeah. It's an automatic wound with only invulnerable saves. The unfortunate thing is that most of the Mechanicum don't have access to haywire anymore. They get access to a special ability called disruption, and disruption basically says it kind of like rending, like a disruption 5-up rule that when disruption when you get hit with this weapon, like you roll to wound, or you glance automatically on a 5-up, for example. So if you disruption 5-up for a hoplite now, I think actually it might be 6-up for shooting and a 5-up in melee, but they're disruption 5-up. They're no longer haywire. So they're still decent at popping vehicles, but again, you're hitting on 5s. Yeah. So It's not like, before where it was BS2 haywire. Now it's basically it's you can still be BS4, BS5, but it only matters if you're rolling 5-ups to hit, to get those glancing hits now. And again, it doesn't apply the same effect to Automata or Dreadnoughts. It still does the automatic wound. So if you roll the Disruption 5-up or Disruption 4-up, for example, for the Voltrax, the Dreadnought still gets a 2+ save. The Automata still get a 3+ save. So you don't get the same effects as Haywire, where it doesn't, right now at least, unless it maybe gets fact in the future. I don't think it will, but your Disruption only applies against their normal armor save, so it's not nearly as strong as Haywire.
Yeah, Haywire can be pretty greasy too. No saves allowed.
No saves, yeah. So, I just wanted to kind of highlight that you can take Sekitari. I'll talk about them a little bit here, kind of in kind of parallel to the units, but that's what I'm talking about. So you can take the Allied Detachment, you can take Sekitari Axiarches and Sekitari Peltasts and Hoplites, but they're not nearly as abusive as they used to be. So I'll start with like the main HQ, because this is, like, we talked on this and how we kind of pick this out.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to pick an Archmagos, and you get to choose between an Archmagos or an Archmagos on a band. Archmagos 155, a band is 185. You gain Cortex control, the Mechanicum Protectiva, which is the 4-up invul, natural Voltex Serpenta, and power weapon. They're a movement 6, weapon skill 4, BS 5, T5, strength 5, 3 wound, Inish 4, 2 attacks, leadership 10, 2-up, 4+ invul. Base, that's on all of them. The Abant gives you access to 5 wounds and T6, which makes them a lot more tankier. Both of them get Battlesmith 4-up, Feudal Hierarchy, which is the rule that you can only choose one of them in a force. Master Protocol or Master Cyberthurgist, which gives you access to 1 or 2 Cyberthurgies. Orders of the High Techno-Arcana, which we talked about. Both of them can take Augury Scanners, Rad Grenades, Melta Bombs, and Cyber Familiars. And really the key one in that list is actually, there's 2 of them. First one is Cyber Familiar. So Iron Hands players, same thing. You get +1 to your invul save. So you're, for 15 points, your 185 turns into 200 points, and you get a Toughness 6, 5 wound, 2-up, 3+ special character, which is
that's bonkers.
Tough to deal with.
Yeah, that's like Custody level toughness, right? Rolling on a bike.
Yeah, and then you give them Rad Grenades. So, like, they have kind of ways of, they're not, again, we're talking like 2 attacks base.
Yeah.
they're not hitting you very hard, and weapon skill 4 base. And for the most part, it's unless you're choosing one of the Myrmidex or Malagra versions of these guys, you're not getting access to weapon skill 5. And again, even if you're weapon skill 5, champions are still weapon skill 6, for example. So for the most part, you can probably count on hitting everything on 5s.
Yeah, I can tell from this guy, like, he's not made to go in swinging, but he's going to tank it out for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. So, once you get your Archmagos selected, you're probably going to take a normal Magos. So these guys are 75 points base for the walking versions, and 105 points for the Abant versions. They come stock with a power weapon, las pistol, the 4+ invulnerable save, and the walking version actually gets a 5-up feel no pain as well. So the walking version is T4, 2 wounds, basically your Centurion level kind of character stat profile, but gets a 3-up, 4-up, and a 5-up feel no pain. Again, this guy gets access to the Cyber Familiar too, so again, you can give him a 3+ invulnerable save. They all have the Cyberthurgist Adept, which gives them access to 1 Cyberthurgic Arcana, which I said earlier. Fire Protocols 2, independent character. These guys naturally get base Patris Cybernetica, so that's that special rule where you can't target them with snipers. So again, you can partner these guys up, and the Patris Cybernetica rule also gives them the ability to join Automata in the unit. So you can tag these guys with any Automata unit, and then you can't target them specifically or allocate wounds to them, which is sexy, to say the least. They come base stubborn, and if you put them on the Abeyant, they go up to T5, 3 or 4 wounds, and a 5-up feel no pain. Still, so 105 points I think is the go-to for this. It's such a solid, tough model. The other thing to take note of here is that anything on an Abeyant now has this special rule called Pride of Place, which means they can't be placed in any transport ever. So, for any of you who played Scoria in first edition, it was pretty common. You'd see Scoria hop into a transport every once in a while and pop out with like 6 Secutors or, an army of thralls or something like that. Now you just can't put anything with Pride of Place in a transport. Scoria does have Pride of Place, so even Scoria can't go on a transport anymore. So Abeyant equals no transportation as well.
Interesting.
So generally, these guys can take, any Magos can take Artificia Cybernetica, the Artificia Machina, and the Ephemera Cursus. So those 3 Arcana that we talked about earlier. The ability to buff is the Artificia Arcana or Cybernetica. The Artificia Machina is the Battlesmith, so you can repair at range. And the Ephemera Incursus is the ability to abuse a vehicle or a dreadnought within 12 inches and make them shoot someone that they love. So these are kind of going to be your core HQ units. Like for me, it's hard to build a force without 1 Archmagos and a Magos. Again, for smaller games, you're probably just going to have 1 Archmagos, and you may have a Magos for how cheap they are in points, like 75 points for smaller games. Once you get to kind of 1500 above, I think you're definitely going to see an Archmagos and a Magos. And then once you get above that, you're probably looking at an allied detachment potentially with another Archmagos or another Magos in it to run it, and a different high Techno-Arcana kind of rule that you can, again, so you can take like your line troops maybe as your allied detachment with just Castellan if you want to run them that way, for example. The only kind of there's 2 honorable mentions here is the Secretary Oxyarch. So these guys are, I think they're 85 points base. I'll double check that here, but I think they're 85 points base. Really, they're cheap, easy augury scanners that can join infantry units. So they're kind of weaker than a Magos. They don't have any of the additional buffs. They got like a 4-up save, T3. They're not very tough. But they still have access. They can take like a loose effects, or they can take haywire staff. But really, the only reason you're taking them is they're cheap augury scanners. So if you can buy one of these guys in an allied detachment, or 2 of them if you want, and you can plug them in with a unit of Myrmidon Secutors to give them an augury scanner, for example. So it's just a kind of a cheaper way to get augury scanners into units that you want to counter deep striking and stuff with.
Nice.
And then, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, no, that sounds nice way to add some little extra firepower or perks, so should be able to counter deep strike assault types of armies.
Yeah, like I would not. We'll talk about Secateurs in about 30 seconds, but Secateurs with phased plasma fusils and an augury scanner makes for a really upsetting deep strike experience.
Oh, I don't doubt. So
the other honorable mention here, of course, is Scoria. I have a very fond place in my heart for Scoria. I think he's one of the best character models Forge World has produced. Personal opinion, but this guy's a monster. He's tough as hell. He's slightly cheaper than a Primarch. He's almost as killy. He's crazy survivable. He still has the 3+ with a 5-up feel no pain. His HQ trait gives automata access to reactions that are around him. He's T6. He just wrecks. Up until the FAQ, he didn't get access to the Orders of High Techno-Arcana. He does now, making him even better. Under 2,000 points, I don't think you'll see him. 2,500 to 3K, I think he's going to become a decent choice now for Trader Mechanicum forces. He's gained, like I said earlier, he's gained Pride of Place, so you can't jam him and 6 Myrmidons into a Heresy Pain train anymore. But he's just as killy. The other thing too is he comes base with, I think, Fear 2 now as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just around him. So he's just a monster to deal with in close combat. And again, he comes base with his photon thruster. He's a solid HQ choice now. Just an opinion. but I think you're going to see him. I think people, again, he's such a great model. People, I think, will play him anyways. But he will be one of those, like, is your buddy playing a Primarch?
Yeah,
you may want to take Scoria type of things. So we'll dig in here a little bit, and we'll start going through the actual troop slots and everything. So, the first one to come up is Thralls, cheap and cheerful. These guys got hit with the nerf bat pretty hard compared to first edition. They went from like a fearless kind of mob with an ability to give them a 4-up feel no pain and a 4-up base save to a 6-up save, no fearless. Right now their leadership 6 with stubborn, so there's a good chance that like these meat bags are just not going to hold the line like they used to. There's ways of making them a little bit more durable. Again, with the adept, to give them plus 1 feel or feel no pain. But unfortunately, with how like they're now technically worse than guardsmen. Leadership 6 and stubborn is like that's a 50% chance to flee whenever they have to take leadership text, and like bolters are going to rip through them. Like you're basically relying on that feel no pain, and again you're still only toughness 3, so like anything strength 6 is doubling you out, so you're not getting your feel no pain, and there is a lot of strength 6 in the game now.
It's true there is.
I guess on the upside is these guys took a point drop. They went from 4 points to 3 points a model. So like you could take hundreds of them.
Yeah, you can still drown the board.
I guess and run off the table on turn 1 and 2. that's I don't see, like, again, from a guy who has like 60 of these things, I actually don't see a real solid use for them anymore. They just don't. They're not going to be as robust as they used to be. And on top of that, their special rules now, which used to prevent them from sweeping advance, also prevents them from reactions. So now they can't sweeping advance and they can't react. So I don't see a huge point for them anymore. Next one is the Thalix. So really, the Thalix, for anyone who played them in 1.0, very similar idea. The Incanabula jump pack or jet pack is a real cool option for them. It allows them to do a 6-inch shunt move after they've shot all their weapons. So you can kind of hop out, jetpack move, shoot your weapons, and hop back into cover or back on objective. There's still a T5 3-wound platform with a 4-up save and a 6-up feel no pain with their Thalix ability. But I guess the other thing too is they did get a bit of an upgrade here with their weapons. Lightning guns got better. Lightning guns have 2 fire modes. One is a strength 4 shred heavy 3, so they get 3 shots now, the strength 4 weapon, or they get access to a heavy 1 strength 7 AP 3 shot with breaching 4 up. So it's actually reliably gonna kill Marines now, with a chance to kill Terminators or something. I do believe they also get, or it might be the bigger options, to get access to Exoshock on a 4-up as well. So at least it gives them an option. They are pretty killy. The one downside is they did, for those that played them in first edition, they lost their kind of special upgrade. You used to be able to give them Tank Hunter, Skyfire, and etc. in 1.0. You can't give that to them anymore. So they are just stock. I think these are a decent choice for troops, but I don't think they're going to be the go-to. Because next we have Castellax, and the fact that you can make Castellax line make them a pretty solid investment. Yeah. So Castellax, saw a decent point drop, but also a lethality drop here in 2.0. They lost kind of the core issue here with a lot of the Mechanicum units, is they lost the monstrous creature rules, which used to give them flat access to AP2 and Smash. So they lost that, which they lost their natural AP2. They gained an AP3 weapon, so it's strength 7 AP3 base, which is not bad. Great for killing Marines, not great in specialty combat against any melee centric force. You do get a T6 platform with a 3-up, 5-up, multi-wound tanking type character. Difficult to insta kill them out with their toughness 6 now. You're not, even with like brutal 2 with that many wounds, you're still having to eat through them. It's going to take a lot to get through like a core group of 4 or 5 of these things. It can reasonably with line, it's holding objectives. makes them a real decent troops choice to push center objectives with their Magos, behind them, buffing them, giving them ability to take reactions or +1 ballistic skill, or putting your Arch Magos with them and giving them +1 weapon skill and +1 ballistic skill. Bumps them to ballistic skill 5, weapon skill 4. Again, against melee centered units, it's not as good, but it at least is giving them an option. Again, the honorable mention here is the Secutari, which you can take. I include these guys even though they're accessible via the Allied Detachment. They kind of got dunked on in 2.0 as well. They lost most of their lethality, like we talked about. They don't have access to really reliable haywire anymore. But there is one kind of interesting combo. The Peltasts have an ability to shoot a weapon called a Blind Barrage, which allows you to give a unit within 24 of you a 4+ Shrouded save once per turn or once per game. So there's a pretty interesting strat here where you take a unit of 10 of these, and you give them the ability to basically give one of your other better units a 4+ Shrouding save once per game. So again, they do have access to the concussive shot and hammer rounds out of the on their base weapon, but hammer shot rounds are 10 points per model. Don't get me wrong; it gives you access to an AP3, strength 4 AP3 single shot weapon, but actually, sorry, it also has molecular dissonance, which is on a 6 at auto wounds. So it's an AP3 single shot weapon. Again, not a single shot being it can only be fired once per game, but it's heavy one, I think. Mm-hmm. So it makes them slightly more killer, but it makes them 20 points a model, which is a tough sell for me.
Yeah.
I think you take them, like I said, to give them the Blind Barrage to 1 unit, or you take 2 of them to give it to 2 units, and that's it. So the Scalix Guardian Automata, honestly, I don't really see a use for these guys. They've got a ton of their own special rules, like they've got the Guardian Automata rule, they've got the Rad Furnace special rule, which means they wound at +1 better in close combat, but shitty weapon skill. Their one ability where they can do a single strength 7 AP2 attack is cumbersome, which means they're only hitting on 6s. It's just not a great combination for a melee focused unit. Again, when you've got other decent choices in here. The last here with this, as the honorable mention again, is the Triaros Armored Conveyor. This thing is the Heresy train. I don't know another way to say it. This thing has no chill and no brakes. It's got a transport capacity of 22. It's taken all your bulky models in it. AV-14 with a flare shield up front. Basically anything in front of it can just fuck right off. The air kicker is you get a shock brow with this thing, which I read it 2 or 3 times before I went and started looking up the rules to it. But this gives you an additional D6 hits when you ram something. So again, anyone who's familiar with rhinos running around bullying people on the board to date, this thing rams you and does 2d6 strength 8 hits.
That's gross.
Which is just it's just kind of abusive, just in general. So the plow train is kind of just rolling around the board, delivering probably a boatload of Myrmidons to your front line, and then leg humping its way through tactical squads for the rest of the game until you eventually are able to blow it up. Don't get me wrong, its points are reflective of how fun it is. They're high. They're 135 points base, but it's still I think it's a great unit. It's crazy fun as well, just to run it around the board and point it at things and just have people have to deal with it.
That thing sounds awesome.
Yeah. So Elite's Choice is much smaller. You got your tech adepts here. This is a real big slot because it gives you each tech adept can be updated. Each Magos in the tech adept squad can be updated to a Lacrimarta, Battlesmith, Cybernetica. So you can kind of choose an Arcana for them, and then they can kind of upgrade units around them. They're not as good as a Magos, but they're kind of like a pseudo Magos up that you can add to your forces. What's interesting here is that you can choose to upgrade them to the Reductor upgrade, which allows you to give your Servitors grav weapons, which is a ridiculously offensive way to make Servitors good. Mm-hmm. but it's stupid expensive. It's like 25 points per servitor. But you're giving them, yeah, I think it's a graviton imploder, which is a heavy 2 grav gun, which is hilarious. But like, basically you spend like 200 points on this squad, and again, you can upgrade it. You can add more servitors to it, and then give them grav guns. You could turn this into like a 600 point unit, which is servitors throwing grav everywhere on the battlefield, which is terrifying and hilarious.
Yeah.
Probably not super points efficient, but kind of fluffy in a way. The next one here is the Domitars. Sorry, I'll go back there. So this is also the unit that is going to give can be upgraded with Lacrimar to give your tech thralls the +1 feel no pain. This was a go-to strategy in 1.0. Again, a tech thrall with a 6-up save and a 4-up feel no pain, and on toughness 3 platform is not doing a whole lot of work.
No.
Anyways, so my second favorite unit of the Codex, or the Liber, is Domitars. So these guys got a serious glow up here in 2.0. Pretty substantial point drop. They went from 175 to 145 base. Their grav hammers went up to strength 10 AP2. More attacks on the charge now. They get 4 attacks base. Their backpack rocket launcher got its own upgrade. It's basically now just a flat rocket launcher. It can shoot frag and crack missiles. This is kind of, to me, this is like a discount, read it what you want, a shittier version of a Contemptor for its prices. Contemptor you're paying probably 185 base, probably around 200 to give it a little few bells and whistles. This thing's coming in at 145. It's weapon skill 4. It's got a 3-up and a 5-up invulnerable save, so it's not hitting as often as a Contemptor. It's not hitting as hard. It doesn't have brutal. But it is actually a good, decent melee unit in the Mechanicum Force now. Again, I don't think this thing's going to survive long. One of them for sure is not going to survive long against a dedicated melee unit or Terminators with power fists. This thing will bully tactical squads and non-weapon skill 5 units all day long. Insta-kill units all day long. Is wicked against small vehicles, punching tanks and rhinos out. What's a kind of interesting strategy here is to give one of these Paragon of Iron. It bumps up their weapon skill, makes them again slightly better, gives them weapon skill 4 base, I believe, or 5, but it does make them slightly better. It will not die, for example, so slightly more survivable. I think these are a decent choice. I can't wait to try 3 of them on the table here in about 2 weeks. I think, like I said, a decent choice all around. The real winner in this slot, though, is the Myrmidons. Myrmidon sectors are, in my opinion, kind of the darlings of the Codex. They're toughness 5, 4 wounds each. They have a 3-up, 5-up, invulnerable, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 5. Even with Maxim bolters on them, which for the most part I hate, and power axes, these guys are just upgun better Marines all around. You also can pay them massive point sink to give them phase plasma fusils, which then your friends and enemies will definitely mostly hate you. Phase plasma fusils are strength 6 AP3, breaching 4 up, and assault 3. So again, it's 20 points, 10 points per one of these, so 20 points per model to give them 2 of these. But then you're getting 6 plasma shots per model at BS5 with breaching 4 up on them.
That's nasty.
It is nasty. It is gross. The other option is to give them 2 Graviton guns each. Again, if you really want to lean into Graviton and, trying to knock out Contemptors and vehicles and stuff like that, reasonably, a squad of 3 is 6 Haywire shots per turn. These guys kind of get expensive real quick, but I think honestly they're worth their points across the board. With Myrmidax as the high Techno-Arcana, you can make them line, so they're troops. Again, with 4 wounds, with a 3-up and a 5-up invulnerable save, they're more survivable Marines. Even with a brutal 3 attack, if it gets through, you're going to kill one, maybe, with a Contemptor on the charge. Maybe, like, if you get super lucky, you might get 2, but probably not. You're probably only didn't do 1. And the other thing too is they come base with a power axe, which is plus 2 strength, AP2. So they're hitting at strength 7, AP2. So again, wounding most Marines on 2s. They're hitting Contemptors on 4s or wounding Contemptors on 4s. And again, that's just base. Like, you're not paying anything for it. So I think, like I said, I think these guys are a serious darling of the Codex. I think they're the kind of one go-to unit that like I said, I've been buying up everything I've seen here for the last 3 weeks trying to get more of them. The one pain in the ass here is that the kit only comes with one of each weapon type. So it comes with one set of Maxim bolters, one set of plasma fusils, and one graviton gun. So you have to buy 3 sets to get access to only 3 of the same weapons. Makes for a lot of modifying to be able to give them, say, like 6 of them plasma or 6 of them graviton guns. So just be aware of that if you're out there trying to find them right now. Fast attack slots, we have the traditional Voltrax, which is like everyone's hated flyer from first edition. This poor little guy has been mostly nerfed into the ground. He lost a lot of his he lost his flying. Like, they took his wings.
It's no less than he deserves. Those things were fucking assholes on the tabletop.
Seriously, you could tell this poor thing must have abused a couple of the play testers and the lawyers or the rule guys on the front end during development, because he got hit pretty hard. He got swatted right out of the sky, literally. So he lost flying. His stat line mostly stayed the same. His haywire gun went from 3 shots to 4 shots, but again, he lost haywire. He gets access to the kind of nerf version, so he's glancing on 4-ups with a strength 6 attack. Reliably with a BS5. He's reliably going to glance 50% of the time. That's two glances per turn. He's still a bit of a bully unit. The downside, again, with the loss of flyer, he gained access to the special jump pack specifically for this unit, which allows him to move 18 a turn, so he can still move 18. He's going places. He's still going to get glances off on your Spartan or your Sicarans or whatever you have protecting your backline. But reliably, you need 2 or 3 of these things to still knock out tanks. The upside is they dropped substantially in prices. They went from 175 in 1.0 to 125, 135 here in 1.0. But you're going to need 2 of them to kind of do the same job that one did before. And the other kicker is technically they are an automata, so they do need a Cortex controller to be able to not shoot or charge the unit that's closest to them. So just as a bit of a heads up, like, you can run these guys at the table, but if they're not the closest unit, you don't get to shoot it. So again, Cortex controller and the automata rule means that you do have to target the closest unit to you to assault and to shoot. So you got to place these guys in a way that allows them to be right in front of or close to the unit that they're attacking each turn to be able to kind of get use out of them. And if you screw something up or the unit moves away, again, with reactions the way they are now, like if I move up and I don't exactly make sure that you're the closest unit, you could technically move your niche and put another unit closer to me, which means I can't shoot you anymore. So just something to be aware of. Other than that, I still think it's a good price or good choice. I think reasonably most, 2,000 point armies, even 1,500 points, we'll probably see 1 of these or 2 of these on the table. I think they're a good choice for popping armor still. I think you just need more of them for what they bring now. The next tier unit is the Voltrax. So again, this these punchy little guys were not really used in first edition. I don't see a huge use for them in second edition. They got nerfed for the same reason that most automata did, is they lost access to monstrous creature, which means their nat AP2 weapons are now AP3 blades with breaching. Actually, I think they're AP4 with breaching 5 up now. So they got access to rotor cannons, which they had before. They lost access to their biochem ammunitions, which was a kind of a spicy addition that they used to have. They don't get access to that anymore. Their lightning gun on the top of their backs got a little more useful, so it makes them slightly more punchier at range. But again, I just don't see a huge use for these guys. Again, if you're spending this much, 65 points for 20 points more, you get a Castellan, which hits harder in both melee and shooting. I don't like. I would like to try 2 or 3 of these. Throwing them up the table. Basically to capture objectives. They're super fast, but again, I just don't see a huge use of them. Maybe if someone wants to correct me here, post somewhere here or in the Discord. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't see a huge use of them anymore. And then, speaking of useless units, the last one in the fast attack slot is the Ursarax. I really wanted these to be good here in 2nd edition. I did not get my wish. Honestly, they're the glassiest of glass cannons, other than maybe the Krios Venator. But they've got a 4-up save, 6+ feel no pain. They're on a Thalix body. They got a T5. Makes them semi-durable, but they're Inish 2 base and 1 if you give them Power Fists. They've got 2 base attacks, 3 with the 2 close combat weapons. The issue here again with T5 and a 4-up save is that most units are able to kill a couple of these on Overwatch alone, and then with Inish 1 and 2, even Marines, again weapon skill 3, you're hitting on 5s. Marines are hitting you on 3s. As punchy as they are, they just actually in the end don't do a whole lot of damage, and it's difficult to get them in combat with enough models that you can actually wreck things. I think there's some combos here, like maybe giving them a Myrmidax Lord with a jump pack, and he runs up the table with them as a boogeyman. May have some play, but for how expensive like a unit of 10 of these things are, which is kind of what you need to really wreck something, odds are you're only getting like half into combat, and then from there there's a chance you may lose combat because they're not fearless at all. So it's they're a tough sell for me personally.
Interesting. Can they still be upgraded to take lightning claws?
Yeah, they're base lightning claws now.
Oh, okay.
And then you upgrade them to take power fists for 10 points a model. Again, like you are technically your strength 10, but again, you're Inish 2, weapon skill 3 base. So like it's a melee platform that sucks in melee for the most part.
Yeah.
Which again, if you wanted to throw like 10 of them at like a knight or a Spartan, they will wreck that thing. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't like. Unfortunately, they're a dedicated melee unit that has real trouble getting into combat with all the Overwatch.
Yeah, no doubt.
I just don't see it. But last thing here we'll cover before we fade away is the heavy sports slot. I'm gonna start with my favorite is the Thanatar. So. Big Daddy T is back, and he's better than ever. This guy has a built-in double shot now for the plasma mortar. So you take 1 D3 wounds a turn with no saves allowed, and it allows them to double shot. So anyone again who played first edition, you used to be able to Cyberthurgic, give this guy an extra shot, but then he wouldn't be able to shoot on turn 2. So you double shot turn 1, you wouldn't shoot turn 2, and you could do this twice a game reliably. Now you can do it every turn, and with how easy it is to repair automata now, this guy is going to be double shooting every turn. Unlike the test rules had this at a strength 7, AP4 AP4 breaching 4 up. It is now a strength 8 AP4 breaching 4 up, so you can reliably put 2 5-inch templates out a turn with strength 8 AP4 with a 4 up breach on it, and it ignores cover. So fuck you're shrouded.
Yeah, no doubt. Damn.
Makes them like actually decent. I was a little worried that they're going to get nerfed, but this guy has come around. This double shot thing is definitely worthwhile to keep them for their points and what it can put out. Minutes here. The 7 wounds. Basically, he's kind of like a Thanatar slash Leviathan kind of frame. Like he's got a 2-up save. He's toughness 8. He's got a 5-up. Invulnerable save, automatic shielding. He can be repaired, so he's tougher potentially. He's got the base, the Calax or Caves version is the plasma mortar with the twin linked Mauler bolt cannon, a solid platform to just walk up the board and just drop mortars on things all turn long. which is just sexy. I love it. The other kind of call out here is that the Thanatar Calyx is the heavy las cannon. This poor guy saw almost 0 play in first edition because it was a heavy 1 strength 10 AP 1 shot. Now it is a heavy 3 strength 10 AP 1 shot. And I think it's got Exoshock 4-up, Armor Bane. Like, it will wreck whatever it shoots, full stop, which is nice to have. And then its Grav Hammer actually got buffed, so it is a strength 10 AP 1 in close combat. And it's got I got off the top of my head, it's got an ability that reduces charging distances when you try to charge it. So to take the Myrmidoc's Techno-Arcana, this guy, the Calyx, becomes your non-compulsory HQ slot with the las cannon and the Grav Hammer. So this little guy just marches at the front of your giant Myrmidon force, shooting heavy 3 strength 10 AP 1 las cannon shots and punching stuff in close combat with Grav Hammers all day long.
Wow.
So nice. Honestly, it's a fantastic addition and changing rules across the board. Again, you can argue for 235 points. Again, I think it's a solid deal. But again, I'm sure this is a pretty full slot across the board for heavy. So the next one, I think, again, is the sleeper unit for the decks is the Karaknos artillery. So this thing is on the standard gun frame, which is the AV 14 front armor, 12 sides. It does not have the flare shield, but the Bombard is a strength 6 AP 4 7-inch massive blast with Radphage, Fleshbane, and Shellshock Neg 3 in pinning.
Oh, what?
So just internalize that for a second. Just think what that does to anyone who's not stubborn.
That's wild.
Most units are leadership 8, let's say.
Yeah. So
bumps you down to leadership 5 on 2d6 to make your pinning test. So anything without stubborn, I would say odds are is almost an auto pin. And again, that's what it's not killing. It's still strength 6, so it's wounding on 2s. It's got a 7-inch blast, Radphage, and Fleshbane. So everything it hits, it's probably going to wound. With 7-inch blast, you're covering an entire 10-man squad. Ballistic skill 4, 70-inch range or something, 60-inch range or something stupid. So it's shooting across the board. Barrage, it's such a it's also 200 some points. It's honestly if the game keeps going towards this leadership modification and pinning and stuff like that, this is a good choice, I think. I bought one. I'm gonna go play it and see how this works.
I'm sure it'll work quite well. Looks awesome on paper.
So the next one is the Krios and the Venator. Basically, these guys lost their flare shield, which was a big reason for taking them. They still wreck face. The stock lightning cannon on the Krios gained 4-up rending and 4-up exoshock now. It's strength 7, and it's a 5-inch template. So a 5-inch rending template is a good addition. No matter compared to what it was, it used to be base AP3. I think it's still base AP3. So AP3 4-up breaching on a 5-inch template. That is good. That's good for 120 points. So for 145 points, you get the Venator, which is still remains the strength 9 heavy 4 AP2. These things are basically the definition of your glass cannon. If you can get on their side, they're only armor 12, 4 hull points. They're not that hard to shake and beat up. They are a lot, obviously they're still cheaper this edition, but I think reasonably they are just where the meta's going. If you're not shooting first, these things aren't going to do a whole lot of work for you. I think they're going to get bumped out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Second to last here is the Myrmidon Destructors, so similar to their cousins here. I don't know where these guys fit right now. They get access to a Darkfire cannon for 20 points. They're already a little bit expensive, to be honest. But what I'm really liking with them, what I've built 3 with here so far is they they have access to the Irradiator engine, which is a Torrent 12 Strength 4 AP3 flamer. So, like, I guess that's what a 20-inch range flamer basically, with AP3 on it. So they do have access to the same close combat weapons as the Castellax. They're like strength base AP3 as well. So I think these guys bully Marines all day long, but I don't think they're going to stand up against any get at game melee. Again, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 5. What I think is another nice choice here, like if you don't want to go the I'm going to set your Marines on fire method here, is Darkfire cannons. 6 of these with Darkfire cannons is a decent option. My only issue with Darkfire on these guys, same thing to Castellax, is Darkfire does have Gets Hot, and it Gets Hot is on an AP2, so you're taking your invulnerable saves with these guys, similar to what you were with Castellax, to be able to use them. I still think like 6 of them with Darkfire is a good option, even with Darkfire being nerfed to 36 range. I think, but again, with how expensive they are, I'm still kind of I'm not 100% sold on these versus Castellax versus like maybe more Thanatars or even a Venator or Krios. I think it's a tough slot to fill here with them.
That's a good thing, though. You'll see a bunch of armies, Mechanicum armies, that are going to be playing a lot differently as well, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I think for the first time you'll see a lot of Mechanicum armies which are actually infantry focused, which is, again, like we LVO for 3 years in Adepticon, there was like the one guy playing all Castellax and maybe a few Secutors. Most people are playing Venators and Krioses before, with Scoria or a few odds and ends, or Knights, supporting. I think you're going to see Thalax for the first time. I think you're going to see Myrmidons for the first time. I think that's a good change. The last honorable mention here is the Morax Knights. This was an addition later in first edition that came out there. They made it into the heavy support slot here for the standard Mechanicum force. I honestly don't have a whole lot of experience with these. I think on paper they look really good. Previous edition they were vehicles. Now they have a very similar cast or stat line to a Contemptor. They're kind of discount Contemptors, I guess, in a way. They're cheaper points. I picked up a few of these, just with range melee option, like with their claw and the Volglare, Volkite, or a Lightning Lock. Lightning Lock is strength 7 AP3 small blast with rending 4 up. Again, they have a 3-up save, 5+ null, vulnerable, and 6 wounds. I think honestly, for their points, they're a decent option. They have a pretty interesting advanced reaction that only they can take, which is the Gruso protocol, or Griso protocol, which allows them to basically like Tau reaction fire. So if you shoot a unit that's within 12 of them that has either a Knight or Automata special rule, they get to return fire.
Oh, that's nice.
On top, so you can react if you have 2 shooting reactions. You can react with the unit and return fire, and you can also react with this unit if it's within 12 and return fire. So it's kind of it's just an interesting little spicy advanced reaction. Again, the Lightning Lock, you can put 2 Lightning Locks on them for 2 strength 7 AP3 3-inch blasts at BS4. Unfortunately, they're not great. They weapon skill 4 base. They got a 5-up kind of all-around save for invulnerables. Like I said, I don't know where these fit. I think again in a heavy support slot where you've got basically Venators and Krioses that are similar in points. If you really want to go down the Knight route, then these are good options. But I think it's like I said, I picked up a few. I'll try them out, but I don't know where they really fit right now, to be honest.
Discount Contemptors backing up your Castellax and Myrmidons could always be good.
Unfortunately, if you don't take, you have to take the Night House to get access to the normal armigers. They don't come stock for the Mechanicum. Some of the honorable mentions, we're not going to go into super heavies here, but obviously the Mechanicum gets access to all the Mechanicum Knights, specifically in the Night Houses. The Pori is still in the book. He's still a boogeyman. We'll go over that here in round 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. That kind of covers the way you build an army and the units, kind of the units you can take in a standard tag meta list and Mechanicum list. I think there's a lot of noise if you hang out on the Mechanicum pages and Facebook pages, and whether you're talking competitive or narrative style play, there's lots of noise around the unfortunate proofreading of the book, or lack thereof, and how the force. I like, there was an article just the other day, like, why Mechanicum are the worst faction. I actually don't see it, and I see a lot of people that are starting to play them on the Mechanicum pages and other pages are super excited about how the faction plays. They're excited about the opportunity to build different lists and try out different things, like Astartes have been able to do for years. And I think for the most part, the book seems relatively internally balanced against standard Astartes lists reasonably well. It took us like years and years and years and years and years to come up with the most refined Mechanicum list that was abusive. I actually don't see that possibility with this book. I don't see anything that's like overly abusive, stacking Thanatars and dropping like 6 barrage templates per turn. Don't get me wrong, could be a little abusive, but even then, it's not like, there's just ways to deal with Thanatars quite easily right now in the meta. Whether it's Fulmentaris, whether it's Havocs, whether it's Drop Pod Assault, whether it's instant death weapons or brutal weapons, Automata are still, that's their weakness. They're shit in melee. They're going to get eaten up by brutal weapons and by, high strength instant death weapons, or anything with instant death is still going to do D3 to their automatic shielding. Some of their killy power got nerfed a little bit here, but I still think overall, I think it's a really good book. I think it's a solid start. I think it needs some FAQs to kind of clean it up, but it's definitely an exciting book, and it's a solid addition to I think to second edition and how second edition is balanced right now.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds overall very good. I know compared to like 1.0, 1.0 was pretty scary to deal with. They're very easily geared towards killing Marines, and obviously if you built that way, you were in a pretty good spot for majority of your games. These guys definitely seem like they can do a lot of damage, and it's nice to see, right? Like I'd like to see the Mechanicum being able to hold their own and throw it down. All the different Castellan, all the different Domitar that they have access to, Thanatars. It's going to be nice to see more of the model range on the tabletop.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, for the first time, like I've played like almost identical Mechanicum lists for 3 years or 4 years here now. Jesus Christ, COVID kind of blurs my time frame, but like 2 years before COVID, the lists hadn't changed too much. I started playing demons and I started collecting Marines to kind of change, because I didn't see a real clear way to use the rest of the Index Mechanicus or Index Mechanicum before. Now I do, and like what's exciting is I could see myself building a Myrmidax list. I could see myself building a Cybernetica list. I could see myself building Achronite list specifically around repairing units and flooding the board. For the first time in years, I'm looking at using some of the 30 Thalics that I have sitting on my shelf. It's just and I don't think you need a knight with this. I think a knight adds, for 3,000 points, and you're not taking score, you might need a knight to deal with some of the more abusive lists or factions out there right now, or maybe even Primarchs. But for the most part, I don't think you need it. I think for the most part, people playing Mechanicum that have played Mechanicum, or people joining the faction for this first time, will play this faction and actually have fun, even while losing to Astartes, if that's what it is.
That's good to hear. That is good to hear for sure. So, I guess that kind of concludes our part 1 Liber Mechanicum Deep Dive. We'll definitely be doing a part 2, so stay tuned for that. I know on the docket we've got some Echoes of Eternity book review coming down as well, so there'll be a lot of heresy content coming your way, so definitely keep chiming in and let us know what you thought about the deep dive. Again, if you have your questions or anything that you want to kind of break down, just fire us a email, and we'll definitely get to you on the show in the beginning there. So thank you for a pretty legit detailed breakdown, Alex. It's much appreciated, I think, for a lot of players out there, and for myself. It's nice to kind of hear what they're going to be able to do overall and kind of what to expect from the army.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, like, honestly, I appreciate anyone who stayed with us for the full hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes here. Went a little longer than we expected, don't get me wrong, but yeah, if you stuck with us, please let us know if you enjoyed the content. If you have any questions, like Bill said, please reach out. We're always open for questions.
Absolutely.
Or if you think we're stupid and wrong, you're probably going to tell us anyways.
That's true. Yeah, we'll hear about it either way. So awesome. I guess we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.
Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.